Hi everyone, in this video, let us try to understand the concept called input in Python. In the previous videos, we have covered all the basics and the concept called output in Python in detail. So please check our Python playlist to access those content. Now let us try to understand the concept called input in Python. So before understanding the concept called input in Python, we first need to understand about the input function. The input function is a function that is used to take the input from the user or take the data from the user and store into the variables and store into the corresponding variables. We also pass some data to the input function that in the form of a string. The data that we pass to the input function is nothing but a prompt. Here we can see that in this line we can see that we are passing some string to the input function that is called as prompt. This prompt is used to prompt the user or indicate the user that what value should he enter. Here we can see in this output, right here, enter a value is a prompt which is printed as it is. This prompt will be printed as it is in the output, which is used to indicate the user what value should he enter. Here in this line we can see that we have indicated the user enter a number, which means, so that's the reason the user have entered a number. So this prompt is used to indicate the user what value should he enter, what value should he enter. Let us try to observe this line number 22. Here in this line, what we are trying to do, we are trying to read the input from the user and we are giving prompt to the user, which is string, which will be printed as it is, as we can see here. Prompt to the user to enter a number, and the value that the user entered is stored into the variable a. So this is what will happen. Let us try to execute this line and let us try to see what is happening internally. Here you can see that when I executed that line, you can see that the prompt, which is a string which is printed as it is, and here this box indicates to enter a value. Note that this box type of syntax is only available in the Jupyter notebook, which allows you to enter the value in this content. But normal IDEs, you don't get this box. You will just a cursor here and you need to enter a value. Now let us try to enter some value here and let us try to see what will happen. Here I try to enter the value 5 and let me execute the line. Now let us try to understand this input and output. Here we are trying to read the input from the user and we have stored the input in the variable a. What is happening is that the value that the user entered, that is 5, is stored into the variable a. And when we are trying to print the type of the variable a, we already seen that, right? Type of is a function that is used to print the type of the variable or type of the value stored in the variable to the user. Here in this, we are passing the variable a to this type of function. The type we got is string. Then we got confused because we have given an input as integer value, that is 5. It's an integer, but we are getting the output as string. Why? That is because in Python, the input function by default reads a single string, not a string. It reads a single string as input. Whatever value you enter to this input function, the entire value is treated as a single string. So that's the reason when the user entered 5 here, it is treated as a string and stored into the variable a. So that's the reason we are getting the output as string. Then there is a question, how can we read the integer input, float input? So this kind of question will arise in your mind. So there is no way to read the input as integer or a float. There is only one way. First, you read the input from the user as a single string, and then convert that string into your required format. In this case, we need to convert that into integer because 5 need to be an integer. So this is the only procedure. Read the input from the user into a single string and then convert that into your required format. So let us try to see this line number 16 here. Here we are trying to read the input from the user. Note that we are not passing any prompt to the input function or the string to the input function. This actually means that the prompt is optional. Either you can enter the prompt which prompts the user, which gives some prompt to the user, which helps the user to enter some value. Even though you don't have given any prompt, the working of input function will not change. The input function is used to read the input or data from the user. In the same way, it tries to read the data from the user, like in the previous case. But here, what will happen if you don't give a prompt? The prompt or the print that's or the string is not printed here. So that is the main difference, and the prompt is optional. Now let us try to see what will happen. Due to this input function, the input will be read from the user. What I'm trying to do, I'm trying to convert the input read from the user into the integer value. This is called type conversion. Type conversion is nothing but converting one kind of value into another kind of value. Here I have the user have entered the value 5. So we are trying to type convert the value 5, which is string, as I said, right? By default it is a single string, as I said. This int of function will now convert this type of value 5 into an integer. So this is what we achieve. This is called type conversion. We can also type convert a value into float by using the float function, etc. to a required format. Keeping the type conversion part aside, let us try to understand what is happening here. Here in this input function tries to read the value from the user. As we have seen previously, we have entered the value 5 here. So what will happen? So instead of storing the value 5 into the variable a, what we are trying to do, instead of storing like this, what we are trying to do, we are directly converting the input function, which will be given by the user, which will be a string, which contains the value 5, is now directly type converted into the integer, that is int of 5, and then stored into the variable a. So that's the reason the variable a now contains a 5, which is the integer value. So when you try to print the type of variable a, you can see that the type of variable a is integer. So this is what we are doing. So this is what we have to do when you want to read the input as integer. Read the input as a string by default, and then convert that into our required format. That is, here we need the format int. So that's the reason we converted the value 5 into the integer format and stored into the variable a. So this is what we do. Now let me show you another way of type converting the thing. Here in this line number C, we can see that we have read an input from the user. But user have entered a value 3, that is, and we are storing the value into the variable a. So that's the reason the variable a now contains a value 3, which is a string, is now contained by the variable a. And then when you try to print the type of a, you can see that the type of a is string, because we have not converted. In the previous case, we have type converted, but here we have not type converted anything. So that's the reason the value 3 is now stored as a string into the variable a. And then now what we are trying to do, we are trying to convert the variable a into integer in this line. That is, what does this line means? Int of a. The value a contains a string 3, and then what we are trying to do, int of string 3. What will happen? A is equal to the integer value 3 is stored into the variable a. So instead of converting the thing in the same line and storing into the value a, we are trying to do the same thing in the two lines. Here we are trying to read the value in the string and store into the variable a, and then type converting the variable a. Instead of doing this, we are doing this in the single line. So this is more benefit, right? Because instead of increasing the number of lines, we are reducing the complexity of lines. So this is more efficient than this line. But I have given this example to make you understand this is nothing but the same. What we are doing is same. So when you try to print the type of the variable a, we can see that it is integer. So this is how we can convert like this or this, but this is more efficient because we are using in a single line, but we are using multiple lines here.